Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben, and in this episode of the Smoking Hot Confessions BBQ podcast, I'm talking with a man who has not let a pandemic stand in the way of a great business idea. Hey family, I hope you're well wherever you are and you got that thin blue smoke rolling. This is episode 129 of the Smoking Hot Confessions BBQ podcast. And before we get into it, I've just got a few quick announcements that I need to run by you. The first is that I'd like to welcome our very first podcast partner, JAGRD Woodfired Smoker Ovens. If you're looking for unique or custom-built barbecue smokers or grills, make sure you check them out, jagrdwoodfired.com.au. We're going to hear a bit more from them a bit later on in the episode, but huge thanks to them, and do make sure you jump on and check them out. The next announcement is that the free mini ebook is available up for you on the Smoking Hot Confessions website. It's the Beginner's Guide to Real Barbecue. So if you're just at the start of your barbecue journey and you want to learn a bit more about it, head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com, have a bit of a scroll around, pop your details into the pop-up window, and we'll send it straight out to your email inbox. And thirdly, we'd love to invite you to come join us at the Smoking Hot Confessions barbecue community on Facebook. If you're looking for a community of like-minded people where all the BS is left at the door and we just hang out and talk about barbecue, this is the place for you to be. Smoking Hot Confessions barbecue community on Facebook. Now, this episode, today I'm talking with David Linton, the team captain of Lick of Smoke competitive barbecue team. Now, I last spoke with him in episode 78, which was recorded live at Fat Drip, which is actually just about a year ago, I think probably almost this weekend. In that little mini interview we did, we talked about how Lick of Smoke had absolutely blazed a trail through the barbecue scene in 2019. They'd managed to get up to 8th place in less than a year of competing. And then, of course, 2020 happened and really threw a spanner in the works. But this hasn't stopped David. And so today we're going to get into what he's been doing through the COVID lockdown, because where he is, they've got some super strict restrictions, and we're going to find out a bit more about that later on. So without further ado, let's get David in here.
This is the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions BBQ podcast with your host, Ben Arnott. How long's it been since your last confession?
Alrighty, so welcome to the Confessional, David. It's great to see you again, mate. You are looking sharp with a very nice new haircut.
Thanks, Ben. It's good to be back. I know I'd much prefer to be back at Fat Drip having a chat to you, but it's been a long 2020 in Melbourne, I must say. So it was nice to get out for a haircut. I think for the first time in about 140 days earlier this week. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So just for the listeners who aren't in Melbourne, tell us a bit about sort of the restrictions that have been put in place. I mean, you've just told us it's your first haircut in 140 days. What else have you had to endure?
Yeah, so up until recently, we were in, I guess you call it a hard lockdown. It was a 5 kilometre radius from your home. You could only go out if you're going to the supermarket or the chemist or the bottle shop, the good Australian way. Make sure you got plenty to drink. And that was basically it. And you couldn't visit friends, 2 hours of exercise outside a day. And that was life as we knew it for 100 days. And then last week it got eased to 25 kilometres. So you can now drive around in a 100K radius. Still can't visit friends, still can't go to anyone's house. And we're supposed to get let out today, but there's been a little minor outbreak somewhere, so he's delayed his decisions again further. So, it's pretty much status quo. It's a little bit like Groundhog Day over and over again.
Yeah. Now, when you say he, you are referring to the Premier of the state, which for the US listeners and viewers would be our equivalent of a governor. So I take it his team didn't win the grand final last night then?
No, we call him Conrad Dam. We don't know who he brags for. I don't think we care too much these days, to be honest, Ben. So,
no, he's not. He's not exactly well loved at the moment, is he?
No, he blamed everyone for everyone but himself. And then we had a government that got amnesia at the Royal Inquiry, and they all couldn't remember. So, yeah, it was
very handy.
Yes, very much so.
All righty. So, look, tell me, what was the last thing that you barbecued?
I've actually got an oyster blade lamb shoulder on right now. It's just about finished, and it'll come off at about 4:30, 5 o'clock this afternoon. So, lamb's a favourite at the moment. You know, we've just released a lamb rub recently, so we've done a fair bit of testing, and lamb's always been a bit of a favourite for barbecue from our side of things. So.
Yeah. So why is that? Is that just because you're product testing, or or has lamb always been a favorite for you?
Just over brisket, and don't want to scrape chicken skins at home. So
hot take over brisket.
Oh, you cook so much of it, you kind of it's lost you've lost. I like cooking it. I like cooking it for other people. Just doesn't really do anything for me when I eat it these days. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, it can be quite rich, and you do need to have a bit of a variety in your diet, is what all the nutritionists say.
That is true.
So what is your favorite barbecue to use?
I bought a Traeger just before lockdown, which was a bit of a godsend. So that gets a fair bit of a workout every week or two. But Smoking Jack's my favorite. It's my first pit that I bought for comp. Not my first pit, but it's rock solid. It doesn't miss a beat. So.
Yeah, I was really sad when that guy had to stop building them, because they were one of my favourite smokers out there. They were unique looking. They had a great reputation for, at 1, being solid, 2, being reliable, and 3, being great competition cookers. And I was really sad when he had to up stumps and pack it up.
Yeah, I think he's back on the tools in the industrial side of things now. So it was a bit of a shame. So we take good care of it. It's wrapped up outside, and it'll probably get unwrapped soon and get ready for spring and summer. And we'll see what happens next year with 2020 comps. God knows what's going to happen. So
yeah. Let's hope 2021 opens up.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, it'd just be nice to get borders open, and I'm still waiting for my Victorian passport to arrive. Like I'm sure you're waiting for your Queensland passport to arrive, because it seems we're not all Australians at the moment. So
no,
yeah.
No, the different state approaches and rules have been a bit controversial.
Yes.
But we've been actually quite lucky up here and in Queensland. I mean, life has kind of continued almost as normal, except for the school closures.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the kids have been back at school for 3 months now, and they've stayed there, which has been fantastic. But aside from that first sort of period, we've basically almost had life as normal, except for competitions and festivals and big crowds and things.
Oh, that's great. I know my son went back to school 2 weeks ago, and he couldn't have been happier. So he was just sick of the working from home and being stuck at home and not seeing his friends and not playing sports. So he's glad to be back at school now.
Have they been home for 6 months?
Pretty close to it, yeah. Long
wow.
time. So
I didn't realise that the kids hadn't gone back to school down in Melbourne.
Oh, they went back for a period, and then it spiked again. So then they pulled them back out again. So it's been a rough year for them. I think they got through term 1, and then terms 2, 3, and part of 4 all at home, essentially, apart from a small period.
Oh wow! Yeah, we had term 2 at home, but that was it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of parents in Melbourne happy to have their kids back at school and not having to do homeschooling. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now, how has that affected work for you?
It's not too bad. My son's fairly clever when it comes to schoolwork, and I split time with my ex-wife, and we have joint custody. So, but he's pretty self-sufficient, and the workload wasn't too bad. So he'd sort of get up at 9:30 and then be finished school by lunchtime, and then have the rest of the day off. So, not too bad. So yeah,
pretty cruisy. Lots of Xbox time getting in there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
TikTok and Xbox. What are you going to do in Fortnite? So yeah.
Yeah. But what about you? How has your work been?
Work's been busy. So, I think my first work from home day was the 23rd of March. Touch wood, still going.
Excellent.
And obviously working in cybersecurity space, it's been pretty busy from that perspective. So work's been good, but obviously when you don't have to commute an hour and a half each way to get into the CBD and back out again, it gives you a bit more time to pursue a few other bits and pieces. So yeah, no, it's been good.
Yeah. So do you think that you'll go back to working in the office, or now that you've shown that you can work from home, it'll just continue?
I think they want people back in the office. I mean, our problem is at the office that I work at the moment, they're on levels 33 to 40. So getting people up the lifts, and you can only have 3 people in a lift, it's a bit of a challenge.
Oh, wow.
So there's a few logistical issues. I think we worked it out, take about 9 hours to get everyone up the lift if you went up in 3. So, we need to work through that and understand what happened. So I think we've been informed, or not officially, but we'll be at work from home for the rest of the year. And then we'll see what 2021 brings from that side.
Yeah. At this stage, I'm still on 3 days work at home, 2 days in the office. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what will happen. I think a lot of companies will just spread the load, and I think they'll spread the work times as well, just to be cautious. So, yeah. How are you finding it?
Yeah, really good, really good. Well, I mean, I've already got all the studio gear set up, so I teach remotely for those 3 days a week. So we actually use Zoom, and I run classes through that, and it's so good.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I get like an extra hour in bed in the morning, and I'm finished like an extra hour early in the evening, and so good, so good. But just looping back to barbecue. Now, you were just mentioning that you work in cybersecurity. I understand that you spent several years living and working in Japan, and with all the focus on umami and all that sort of stuff in Japan, I'm just wondering, how has that influenced your barbecue?
So our brisket finishing sauce that we make up is got a few little things we picked up out of Japan in regards to what vegetables and other things really provide umami flavors. So that's been one thing. I did find actually a barbecue place in Japan, in Tokyo, which was a little bit off the beaten path, and the guys were smoking in a little restaurant that had sort of craft IPAs on tap, which was a good little place to hang out. So their barbecue wasn't great, but when you've been eating sushi and sashimi for months on months, and you can go and get a rack of ribs and some pork, it's not a bad little place to hang out. So Japanese food is very complex and very amazing, but yet very clean flavors. So it's you can drive a lot of inspiration from how they do things, and the cleanliness of how they do it as well.
Yeah, and I've seen some of your noodle bowls and things that you like to make up with bits of brisket and things like that. They look sensational.
Big ramen fan. So I know when we're in Japan, we try and hit up new ramen places that were quite famous and infamous, and a few other bits and pieces. So I think my last trip there, we went to a place, I don't know if you heard him, Ivan Orkin, or Ivan Ramen. He's got a show on Netflix, or he's on a Chef's Table on Netflix.
Okay.
He's ventured into ramen. So he was a Canadian guy who ended up going to Japan to live, married a Japanese girl, moved back to the States, then went back to Japan and became one of the top ramen chefs in Japan.
Wow.
And is now back in the States. So we used to go to his ramen shop, which was just like, it wasn't in the Gaijin district, as they called it. It was like out in the suburbs, which was really good. And I've just ordered 2 of his cookbooks because he's got a couple of books out. So just going to have a read of them and start playing around with some ramen. And also follow a guy on Facebook called Alex, the French food guy. And he's got a few how to make instant ramen. So he actually makes up like an intense consomme and then freezes it at ice block cubes and then uses it as instant ramen.
Oh,
just by adding it to hot water. So he's a pretty interesting French guy who's like right into it. So it's fun. So.
Oh, heaps good. Yeah. Now, at the top of the episode, we're talking about your experiences in competition barbecue, and we mentioned that the last time we actually sort of chatted on the record was at Fat Drip pretty much a year ago, I think now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And how you guys had, in less than a year, you'd risen all the way up to 8th place on the national leaderboard. How did 2019 wind up for you?
Yeah, we finished 10th overall. So we didn't do too well. We did pretty well at SCA at Fat Drip, and then the main cook didn't go to plan. But that always happens, and everyone's always got a story. And then I think we ended up doing Invitational in Sydney's never been a happy stomping ground, but we took out first place dessert in SCA at the Invitational, which was pretty good. And then we bombed our main cook pretty hard. So we finished 10th overall. We got 2 comps in 2020. So I think we finished 7th at Hazy Days, and then we RGC'd it up in smoke before over in Adelaide before lockdown and coronavirus kicked in.
Right. Okay. So just looping back to Fat Drip, you mentioned that everyone's got a story. Are you able to share the story of what went down at Fat Drip?
When things are going well, you go, you shouldn't really tweak them because they're working well, and you go, I'm going to tweak, and then you just tweak too much. And we tried to use open pork. We tried to do mini baby back ribs in the box, and we were opening and closing the pit too much, and then that screwed up the brisket cook. And we had issues with our Yoda that we were running at the time, which was a bit of a problem child, but it's all pretty much dialed in now. It is what it is, unfortunately. So, and we had issues with our lamb there as well, which the lamb was a bit of a nemesis. So we kind of worked pretty hard on that over the Christmas period. And then we took out first place lamb and up in smoke. So that was a fairly rewarding from that point of view, because we put a lot of work into getting the flavors right for lamb, and, didn't do too well at Hazy Days. And that was due to a new technique that didn't work. And then we tweaked that and took out first place at up in smoke. So,
good.
All being fun. So,
yeah. So those are the 2 comps that you got in at the start of the year. Were they ABA comps?
Yeah, ABA. There's not a lot of KCBS in Melbourne at this point in time, which is fairly disappointing. But obviously the 30-minute hand-in windows are a lot more, not a lot more challenging. It just makes the day go quicker because, 1 hour between hand-ins feels a little bit elongated. So. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you've just said that the Premier has extended the lockdown as of today. So I take it then that there's no rumours or stories about anybody trying to squeeze a third comp in Melbourne, so you guys can be eligible for the leaderboard if they're even going to do it this year?
No, I don't know what they're doing. That would be highly unlikely. I think, hopefully this little outbreak that's happened will get quashed pretty quick, and he'll ease restrictions and open back. I mean, we've still got retail closed. We can't go to restaurants. We can't go shopping. Everything's essentially shut apart from essential services and hairdressers. So, it's not a great way to live, to be honest.
Now, you mentioned the 5 kilometre lockdown and the fact that you were only allowed to go out to go shopping. Now, that was shopping within the 5 kilometres, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what about people who didn't have like a Coles or a Woolies or a Aldi or something within 5 kilometres of their house?
Not sure. You'd either have to get a permit, like an exemption permit, I guess, or just you'd have to contact them and say, I don't have something within 5Ks or move to online. I'm not too sure. I've got a Woolies that's sort of 2.5 Ks away, and that's where I went. And then I just sort of went to online and said, what, if I can't go out, I may as well not. So,
yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So how is, I guess, 2021 still up in the air then too? I mean, I guess no one's sort of laying down plans for comps for 2021?
No, I don't. You kind of hope so. Every time you wake up, you kind of hope there's a vaccine somewhere in the world that's not out of Russia.
Come on now. I'm sure the Russians just have everyone's best interests at heart.
Oh, we haven't heard from them yet, so who knows if they're still around. But I mean, comps coming back for 2021 would be great, but I think they'll be very much a different look around how they run. With the crowds that, Jay wants at meat stocks. I don't know how that would eventuate in Melbourne, because we're not sure. I mean, it could all get eased and, we could have quashed it, but then, it's what happens when they open up international borders. Who knows what's going to happen. So, it'd just be nice to have borders open and be allowed to travel, go and see friends, go and see family. But we'll wait and see, as I used to call us, the dirty state in Victoria, because that's how we were being treated. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, I just want to loop back to something that you said earlier. You said that you bought a Traeger and that that was a blessing just at the start of lockdown. Was it ironic that you bought a Traeger that you can control from a phone from far away when you're actually locked into your house and you can't go with more than 10 steps outside your door?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I still use it on the phone. So, if I was going to cook something, I'd throw it on in the morning, and then I'd have, back-to-back calls, and I can monitor the temperature of the meat and the temperature of the pit, and can adjust it sitting there without having to leave. So from that perspective, it was, it was a blessing. We've got some great sponsors that look after the team. So, Firebrand, Natural Smoke, and the lads at KCB, and they've been great. But obviously, you don't really want to be hitting up sponsors and say, hey, can you send me down some charcoal and stuff when we've got no competitions, right? So, but, Bobby did send us, a few bags of his new competition blend pellets, so they've been great. So we're burning some of those as we speak. So.
If you're looking for your next barbecue smoker or grill, JAGRD Woodfired has got what you need. Owners Julianne and Glenn are multiple award-winning barbecue competitors who've even travelled to the US to compete at the World Barbecue Championships in Houston, Texas. Based out of Perth and shipping nationwide, JAGRD is one of the largest pit builders in the country and has an ever-growing lineup of meat cooking machinery. Not only do they have their now famous smoker ovens, their incredibly efficient gravity-fed cabinets are proving extremely popular in commercial settings, and they also make some of the most stylish asado grills you're ever going to see. JAGRD is also well known for amazingly detailed custom work ranging from backyard designs all the way to installations in commercial kitchens. Proudly Australian designed, owned and manufactured, you can find out more at jagrdwoodfired.com.au, spelled JAGRD. Once again, head to jagrdwoodfired.com.au, spelled JAGRD, to learn more.
Got a project you'd like to work on with the SHC team? Shoot Ben an email on ben@smokinghotconfessions.com and let's have a conversation.
Alrighty, so that brings us now to the second segment, and I'm really excited to get into this new project that you've been working on during this lockdown when you've been stuck in your house. So tell us all about Smoke Chamber Barbecue.
Yeah, so I kind of have started playing around with sort of an SPG rub at home, just sort of an all-purpose use on steak, and sent a sample out to a couple of people, got a little bit of feedback, and then Michael from the smoking crew reached out and said, do you want to make some rubs together? And obviously, I don't know how many teams, Michael and I are good friends, so we compete pretty hard against each other. We always try and one up each other. And I don't know how many other people produce rubs out there with, the enemy of the other team. But, we got together and knocked out a beef rub, and we thought it was great. And then we cooked with it, and it turned out fairly bland, to be honest with you. And then we tweaked it a little bit more and sent out some samples, and then got some good feedback from other teams out there. And then we got the final product out there. It was probably about 2 months in the making to get it out there, and trying to get spices and deliveries done in COVID with Oz Posts and couriers was a challenge, to say the least. So we set on a final product. We got the artwork done and a whole bunch of other stuff that we had to do. Buy a barcode, register it, a whole bunch of other stuff, and got that done. And we said, we're batching at home because I've got, my 1 and 2 food handling certificate and all of that in place. So Michael came down, and this was before sort of the hard lockdown took place, and we batched up 100 shakers, which we thought we'd last for a while. Our first order came in from our first person that stocked it, and they ordered 80.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Which was great. And then, so we supplied him, and then we thought, we better order some more. So we had to wait for more stock to come in, and we got that in, and now we've been out in the market for, I think, about 2.5 months now with that one, which is called Beef Shakedown, which has had some really good feedback. A lot of people seem to like it, which is obviously nice to hear when you launch something out there. And sort of our philosophy was, we want to release a rub that we think is good enough for comp, but also nice on the palate that you can use at home for family as well. And we think we've achieved that with the beef rub, and we think we've achieved that with the lamb. So lamb just got released as well, and that's called Lamb Lockdown in honor of our COVID thing. But all our names are kind of like, shakedown, lockdown. It's all kind of got that a criminal kind of thing, but sort of law enforcement touch to it. So, it's quite interesting. My spare room is just full of different spices and stuff that we've got out there, and it's been fun. So, I think the hardest thing developing a beef rub is it can taste great on steak, and then you do a slow cook with it, it tastes totally different. So to be able to get that balance between the two, and we think we've got it pretty right. We're pretty happy with it. We're in 14 retailers across the country now, and
wow, nice work.
Yeah, so haven't really pushed the product too hard. We've sort of had people come to us, which has been nice, and we've reached out to a couple of people that we wanted to stock it, and everyone's stocked it pretty much so far. So no, it's been good. It's been good. It's interesting though. It's a fun process to do, but when you're in lockdown and you need to get permits to be able to go and see someone and permits to go and pick stuff up. But, Michael lives in Ballarat. I'm in Briar Hill, so it's about an hour and a half between us. It's not too easy. I mean, the good thing was just before lockdown started, Lick of Smoke launched a catering business and was registered, which was, good and bad. So he had like a number of bookings that got cancelled, which wasn't great, but it also gave us the ability to get a permit to be able to hang out with people and get stuff done. So, because if you're operating a business, you can get as long as you've got a permit to do that business. So, Michael could come down and we could make up the rubs. So we hand batch at the moment. So we do everything by hand, and we bottle by hand, we weigh by hand, we label, we put, foam lids on and all that fun stuff. So, no, it's been good. It's been good.
I didn't realize that had been a collaborative project with Smoking Crew. So usually when competitive teams get into making rubs and things, they do it all themselves. So they've got all the control of it. What were some of the benefits and some of the challenges that you found by doing this collaboratively?
Oh, I think the biggest benefit is, Michael is a hell of a cook. He's a hell of a pit master. He's got a really good palate, and he's very honest. And we took out first place brisket at Meat Stock in when was that 2019, I think. Yeah, Michael.
Doesn't it feel like forever ago?
Oh, it's just you're trying to. What was before 22? What was BC before Corona?
Yeah.
And Michael's taken out a number of brisket trophies as well. So when he said let's make a beef rub, you kind of think about it and go, yeah, I could try and do it by myself, or I could try and do someone who's got a really good palate. And, Michael had good ideas. I sort of had a base recipe for an SPG that we built off. And, we just did a lot of research and looked at a lot of different companies online in regards to, spice manufacturers and where to get them from, and, who's got wholesale, who doesn't have wholesale, because you kind of look at some of the retail price and go, wow, that's going to cost a fortune to make. But then obviously when you contact them as a business, you've got the wholesale side of it, which makes it much more economical. But we're kind of getting to a tipping point where we've sort of got 2 rubs out there, and, we made up 150 of the lamb and they're all sold out. I think I've got 5 left.
Wow.
in the back room. And it's at a point now where we say if we bring out another rub, which we've got another rub in, actually got two rubs on the go at the moment in development. And then we kind of look at that and say, if we're going to do that, it's going to take us like 3 or 4 days to make up enough to get out to people without trying to push it. And it's kind of, you get to that point where you go, can I find a co-packer? Or do I just sort of scale it back? Because the reason Michael and I got it was, let's have a bit of fun. It's going to allow us to catch up. And, we get to cook food and hang out and have a drink and see what happens. So, it's interesting. So.
Yeah, so it sounds like this lockdown has been both advantageous for you and it's thrown some problems your way as well. So what have been some of the hindrances that lockdown has put into the development of these rubs?
Just the ability to get stuff. So probably 70 or 80% of our spices come down from Sydney. And if you track on Ozpost, they go like Sydney, Brisbane, back to Melbourne, back to Sydney. It's just horrendous. So then you ring the company and say, oh, can you courier it to us? And then you've got to get a courier involved and try and get them to come and pick it up. And then when you're boxing up rubs to send them out, you've got to rely on couriers to come to your house to pick them up, to get them out. And then just getting shakers. So Barbecue Spits and Rotisserie supplies our shakers, which is, they're great. They've got a whole bunch of them. And, they supply Steve West from Moist Barbecue for Slow Burner Barbecue as well. Mm-hmm. But when lockdown hit in the 5K radius, well, we couldn't get down there to pick them up.
Oh, right.
And then it's like, well, we can ship them, but it's like 140 in a pack. And you go, oh, I need two packs, and like, well, delivery is going to be almost half the cost of the shakers.
Wow.
It's based on size, not on weight. So then you've got to go and get a permit done. You got to go and get that signed off. You then got to drive down there. Hope you don't get pulled over by any nasty, Mr. Policeman, and I hope it's all okay. And yeah, so it's just the coordination piece, and when we were making the lamb rub, we couldn't find rosemary in Melbourne. We rang like 7 or 8 places, and everyone was out of stock.
Oh, really?
Yep. And then
Why,
we found,
why that particular spice?
I don't know. Every place we rang is like, no, it's coming in a week. It's coming in 2 weeks. It's coming in a week. So whether they all get it from the same place, I don't know, but we couldn't find it. We ended up finding a place in Brunswick that had it. I called them. They're like, yeah, how much do you know? So 3 kilos. They're like, yeah, just come down and get it. But they're like the 1 in 8 that had it. So.
Oh, that raises an interesting question about the percentages of spices and things in Australia that are actually imported.
Yeah. I know a lot of our stuff is a lot of the stuff is grown overseas and then blended here. So it's interesting. We use a few spices that are I guess a little bit out there and a little bit more non-Australian that are give us our unique flavor profile.
Well, that's those Japanese herbs and spices we were talking about before.
Oh, I've actually got I'm curing some bacon at the moment, which has got some yuzu Japanese gin infused.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that'll be ready next weekend, which will be good.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. And so then what has then been the advantages of lockdown?
You can launch a rub brand. You can basically do anything on that you want. You don't have to go to work. You don't have to travel to work, so you save a couple of hours a day, and you have a lot more time to yourself. So there's 2 ways to look at lockdown. Is you can sit there and sort of feel sorry for yourself, and you can't go out and you can't do this and you can't do that, and we all have those days. Or you can look at it as an opportunity to say, I wanted to get into catering. That didn't happen. What else can I do? How can I pivot? So, that's one of my side hustles I've got on. I'm the CEO of a cybersecurity startup. We're building out a product out there at the moment as well. So, we're keeping busy in lockdown. We there's no 9 to 5 in this house, that's for sure. So
no doubt at all. So that CEO job, is that your regular day job, or is that something on top of your regular day job?
No, that's on top of my regular day job. So
wow. So you got like your regular full-time day job. You got your little startup that you've started up of the cybersecurity. Then you've got the rubs, and then you've got Lick of Smoke catering.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. So you're like me. You just don't sleep.
No, well, you get up at 7, you go to bed at 11, and you get a few hours sleep in between. So, it's you got to make the most of it. You don't get the opportunity where you can spend more time with your family and also have more time at home. And you can look at that and say that's bad, or you can look and say that's good. How can I get the most out of it? And that's what we've done. So,
yeah, so good, man, so good.
Mm.
So. Just remind me again of the range. You said that there was a lamb and a beef, and you got 2 coming?
Yeah, so we got beef shakedown. That was our first one, and we're really proud of that and happy how it's gone. Lamb lockdown's just gone out in the last 2 weeks, and then we've got an all-purpose that'll come out shortly. Maybe we're still tweaking it, and then not to cause too much content, we're gonna launch a charcoal rub as well. So yeah. So we've tried to come up with a few different names, and that was quite funny over a few drinks. And
I can imagine.
We have settled on a name, but we will wait to announce that a little bit later. So
please tell me that you're calling it the original charcoal rub.
That was one of the options, and then there was like hardcore axe was another one. I spoke to Michael Trajovic about that. And he just had a bit of a laugh. So he's like, "Yeah, do it. Launch another one. The market's big enough. Everyone's out there, and that's true, right? You look at people and the barbecue teams that have got rubs out there. You got Smoky Pastures like in 40 stores across the country. If you tried to count how many people had Butcher's Act rubs, you'd probably you'd forget, because I reckon everyone's got one of their rubs in your cupboard somewhere, and God knows how many stores those guys are in there if they've really crushed it. And then you've got Slow Burner Barbecue, so Steve West from Moist, and you got Dan Greenwood, the old original tree bark that still kicks around out there as well. So there's plenty of room on the market, and Americans don't always do it better. I know they're the sort of the home alone slow, but do they make the best rubs in the world? Who knows, right? You got to get out there, you got to have a crack. We might, we're actually thinking about throwing one of our rubs into the American Royal Rub Contest next year just to see how it goes. So,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't cost a lot to enter. You may as well throw it in there if you think it's good, see how it turns out. So, yeah.
The NBBQA Awards are actually closing in about, I think it's around the end of November too. So you might want to look in at, take a quick look at throwing a bottle in a satchel and sending it over to them as well.
Oh, do they do awards as well? I'll get some details. We'll definitely have a crack and see how it goes.
Yeah,
so,
we can talk about that off mic. Yeah, but they do all sorts of things for rubs and sauces and all that sort of stuff as well.
Okay, nice. Thanks for the info.
Yeah. Really cool sort of stuff. So you mentioned that you're in, 14 stores now?
Yes. Yep.
Where are they? Where can we get hold of these rubs?
So we're in. You're going to put me on the spot. So we're in one store in the ACT. We're in a couple in Melbourne. So we're in at Medium Place, Cha Cha Cha, Lara Quality Meats, Kelly's Meats, and then Russ from Natural Smoke has got both our rubs. Meet Your Needs. There's a couple others there that I'm going to forget, which I shouldn't. I've got them on my laptop written down somewhere. But we're across the country and one up in Queensland. All things wood and smoke, I think they're called. So,
okay.
Yeah, and then also available direct on the website lickofsmoke.barbecue.com/au/shop. You can buy direct, and we just have a sort of a flat fee for shipping. So, yeah,
sure.
It's been good.
So that was lickofsmokebarbecue.com/
No, so .com.au/shop.
/shop. Okay, cool.
Yeah. That was another. So we built an online e-commerce store just to launch the rubs as well. So got a bit of spare time.
Of course. You've got that 15 minutes a night between 11:30 and 11:45 when you got to get into bed. So why not squeeze a new website in there? So what are your plans then? You mentioned that you were looking at the possibility of scaling up to a co-packer. Is that sort of happening sort of soonish, or what sort of timeline are you looking at there?
Yeah, that would, if we go down the co-packer path, and we haven't really decided yet, it wouldn't be till next year, sort of January. We've found a co-packer. We've exchanged a couple of emails. We just got to get an NDA sorted out just to, provide them some recipes to see what they'll cost it up at and what their minimum order quantity is. And then we'll take it from there. But no real decisions. We started this for a bit of fun, as well as, let's get some good rubs out there. If it brings us some money in that helps pay to get us both teams to comps, that was kind of the purpose of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So what do you think would be 3 pieces of advice that you give to people that are, suddenly found themselves with a lot of time in this uncertain period and are looking at getting some of their projects up off the ground as well? What would be some advice that you have for them?
Disconnect your Netflix so you don't get distracted. That's probably the first one. Like, Netflix and chill is the worst thing you can do. There's so many good series out there. You can sit there and lose a whole night and don't do anything. Speak to your friends, speak to your family, make sure they understand what you're trying to do, because you can kind of fall off the face of the earth and they don't hear from you from weeks at a time, which is not a great thing. But, speak to your friends, speak to your family. You may find someone has a similar passion that you can team up and do it. And that's what I found with Michael, which has been great. And probably the third one is, have a go. It doesn't cost much to launch an online store these days to sell a product. So, you've got platforms like WooCommerce, Shopify, a whole bunch of other ones that are out there these days that are fairly simple. You don't need a hell of a lot of coding skills. And if you do, there's always, marketplaces where you can go and find that information. So that'd be my first one. Get rid of Netflix, because it's the devil.
You're listening to the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with massive barbecue nerd Ben Arnott.
Alrighty, so that brings us now to segment 3, and that's the lesson part of the episode for the viewers and the listeners. And we're going to talk about comp chicken, which is a particularly strong category for you. So I'm basically going to turn the studio over to you and let you sort of deliver to us about competition chicken.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, comp chicken wasn't. We struggled with competition chicken for a long time. So when we first started doing comps, and we haven't done a lot of comps like some of the other teams, but chicken was always our nemesis. And if you think about it, it's probably the quickest thing you can cook when it comes to low and slow barbecue. So, we started out with sort of bone out cupcakes, and we'd finish lower than mid pack every time. So I know at Q Club when we did the Masters of Q, we finished last in chicken. I think meat stock we finished like in 30s or around that time. And then we had a few chats to a couple of the teams in Adelaide and peers from No Bid Required. He goes, "Why don't you do pillows?" And I'm like, "Oh, we always cupcakes." He's like, "Yeah, just try pillows." So we sort of tested with pillows, and we set them in the trays and cook them, and they'd skew and go all weird shape on us. We're like, Jesus, that's hard. And then we went up to do meat stock in Sydney, and Piers was like, "Oh, I'll come up and I'll give you guys a hand if one of our team members couldn't be there." So he flew in from Adelaide, and we're prepping the chicken, and he's like, "Oh, have you lifted up the little flap there and taken the tendons out and the vein that runs through there?" Like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh, let me show you." So, he turns the chicken thigh over. We've got the bone in there. He picks up this little flap, and he's like, "There's these tendons that come out." He goes, "If you don't take those out, they go a really weird shape on you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, we'll shig that nicely." He's like, "Oh, yeah, and there's a vein of like a blood vein running through there on the other side, so you want to remove that as well. And don't cut them. Make sure you pull them out." So, and then Adrian, scrapes our chicken skins for every comp, which God bless him. He's like, "Oh, the one thing I found about when we did cupcakes is they're really hard to eat." So looking at it from a judge's point of view, because if your cupcakes are too high and you've got to take one bite like a judge, like how do you put the cupcake in your mouth? Do you turn it to the side? How does that work? So then we sort of got some chicken thighs and then started playing around and then sort of actually having a look at the different muscles that are all attached. And our trim on our chicken is pretty vicious these days. So we trim basically so we get all the one texture. And that was one of the big things for us. And, people say, do you brine? Do you not brine? How long do you brine for? Our chicken, I think the worst mistake we ever did with chicken was we brined skins by mistake, which makes them basically like chewing gum and not bite through. So, never brine your chicken skins would be, I think, a key piece of advice. And the other thing is, our chicken results went from being really bad, and I think our last three comps we've gone second, third, and then third on countback. So, kind of at the pointy end, which has been, really good for us. And the one thing we moved to was we moved away from a commercial brine. So we made up our own brine, and we reduced we used to brine, as soon as the window opened, be like, "Brine the chicken, put it in there." And leave it in there for like 6-7 hours in the esky and let it go. Our brine time now is an hour 40.
Wow.
That's all we brine our chicken. So our brine's quite strong, but we brine for an hour 40. Then it comes out. We lay them out. We shape them into the smoker, 40 minutes, sauce again, in they go. So I think, when you talk about comp chicken, cupcakes never work for us, and we think that's because they're just hard to bite. And I'm sure people that I know, like the likes of Boomer and those guys, they've won with cupcake before, but it never really worked for us. We find pillows were the way to go. If your pillows aren't working out, find those veins, find those tendons, get rid of them, because they will skew the shape of your chicken, and try and get a consistent texture, because you got to remember, judges take one bite, right? So if you're biting into that piece of chicken and there's like one muscle with another muscle and one bit's nice and the other bit's crappy, you're going to get marked down. So I know when we trim our chicken, we probably trim 50% of the weight off.
Wow.
When we trim. So we trim right back just to have, like, if you think about a chicken thigh fillet, it's just the thigh. All the other muscles, they're all cut right off. So our chicken's not big and we can get 6 in a box pretty easy. And we reduced our brine time, and we make up our own brine from scratch. So we follow a recipe on that. We found a recipe online. We tweaked it just to make it suit ourselves. And, it's been onwards and upwards ever since then. So, apart from Invitational, when we forgot to take the chicken out the smoker. So that was not a good start to the cook, and the rest of that cook went the same way. So I think we pulled the chicken off at like 2:08 before we'd sourced. So probably a little bit too high on that front. But yeah, so competition chicken it can be really, really tasty. I know when we moved to the new brine, I actually I was doing a comp with Jimmy Cameron and Michael from Black Hawk Down. So we went in as a 3-team Robbins Islands marbles, we'll call it, and we went and did turf wars. And I used the new brine there and the the new trim on the chicken there, all for the first time, and we took out second place. And Jimmy hates chicken and he couldn't stop eating it. So I kind of figured we'd done something right there, which was good. So, don't be afraid to experiment with your chicken. Don't be afraid to brine. Check your brine times. Brining too long will ruin your texture. It'll add a hell of a lot of moisture, but it will screw up your texture. And yeah, it's just play around, understand the meats, understand the muscles that you're trimming off and what you're keeping, because they all play a part in how you get good chicken at the end of the day. And we think our chicken's pretty good now. We just wish we could go back to a comp and have another go at trying to get a first. So.
Yeah, right. Man, I got so many questions from that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, first of all, when you were doing cupcakes, back when you were still doing cupcakes, you said that you were doing bone-out cupcakes. Why did you choose to take the bone out?
Because it fits in the mold easier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what we're finding is to get it into the mold, we'd have to cut like both knuckles off, and then they can have a tendency to char or to bleed, and then that bleeds into the chicken. So we used to go boneless. So that was the reason that we went boneless from a cupcake point of view. And then, when we went back to pillows, we also found that you could leave more of the bone in, and it's an easier piece of protein to hold when you want to take that bite and pick it up out of the box.
Oh, okay. So you do still leave the bones in for your pillows?
Yeah, pillow 100% bone in.
Oh, right, 100% bone in. Cool. You said that you trim for texture. So how do you work out which muscles have the same texture as the other muscles?
Well, if you just take a thigh fillet, cook it, don't sauce it, don't hit it with any rubs, don't sauce it, just cook it. And then you can actually look and just bite each piece of the piece of chicken, and you'll actually see there's actual texture differences in it if you take an untrimmed thigh fillet. So next time you're at a comp, Ben, swing past, I'll show you the trim on our chicken before we put it into brine, and you can see how much we take off and what we leave on.
Oh, mate, I'll be in that for sure. No doubt about that. Now, talking about the brining, you said that if you brine it too long, it not only messes up the chicken skin, so obviously you separate the skins before you brine the meat,
yep,
but it also messes up the meat as well. What does it do to the meat? Does it just turn it to mush?
Well, it can turn it to mush, or you can just get too much moisture in it. So when you're cooking it, it's too wet, which makes it sort of mushy and soggy. So we've found, we've done long brine times, we've done short brine. We find a short brine with a stronger concentrate works better for us.
Yeah, cool. Very nice.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, I guess that kind of rounds things out then for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the studio over to you now, and you can give whatever shout outs, thank yous, praises, whatever you want to give to people that have helped you along the way. And we'll start to round out the episode.
Thanks, Ben. First shout out goes to the team at Lick of Smoke. Couldn't do it without those guys. They're amazing. They're always up for a comp, no matter where it is around the country. Next one's to Michael from Smoke and Crew. Obviously, I couldn't have launched the rubs without him, and he probably couldn't have launched the rubs without me. So that's been great. Also to everyone out there that was happy enough to be a guinea pig and test our rubs. So Forest Lump Barbecue, Texas Coleslaw Massacre, the guys at Moist Barbecue, Alessio, who's a phenomenal cook. If you see some of his posts, he gave us some great feedback as well. Yeah, so everyone that helped there, and obviously to our sponsors. So big shout out to Firebrand, and looking forward to being able to get up to Sydney and see Bobby and the team at Firebrand. They've been amazing supporters of us from day one. Russ from Natural Smoke, best wood in the business. If you need something, hit him up. He's got an unbelievable range of wood out there. And our butcher, KCB, they supply us some of the best meat going around. So, just want to thank everyone that's been involved, and it's been a hell of a ride. And hopefully, we'll get to see everyone in 2021 at comps. And I think the first comp back, the Friday night, will be a pretty momentous occasion, that's for sure.
I dare say that first comp is just going to be a complete write-off for everybody.
Yeah, I'd say the winner of that comp probably got there on the Saturday.
Yeah. I can't imagine what's going to be in those hand-in boxes for the judges. I wouldn't want to be a judge of that first comp.
No, God knows what'll be there. So it'd be good fun. So.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much for your time. It's a Sunday evening now as we're recording this, so I realise that you're coming up on your Sunday family dinner time, and you are an hour ahead of me. So it's now 4:30 where you are. Oh, yep. This is the time that you said you got to go pull that lamb off.
I'm just going to shut it down on the phone, mate. It's all good. I'll just flick it into to keep warm. So all good.
The benefits of the Wi-Fi Traeger.
Exactly.
So good. Well, look, man, thank you very much for coming on board the show and sharing the story of starting up a rub business during lockdown.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you having us.
And there you have it, family. That was David Linton from Lick of Smoke BBQ and Smoke Chamber BBQ. Mate, how interesting is that to hear that story about how you can take a really bad situation like lockdown and turn it around into something good and something beneficial for you. I think that's really inspiring for anybody out there who does have an idea in the back of their mind somewhere about something that they want to do during this time to really get amongst it and get their names out there. And there was a lot of tips and some great info as well if you are looking at doing something similar. So that was really great to have David come into the confessional and speak with us. And I'm really appreciative of the time that he has spent with us this afternoon. All right, so before we go, just a quick reminder, big thank you to our podcast partner, JAGRD Woodfired. They've come on board to help us bring this episode to you. So do check out their website, jagrdwoodfired.com.au. If you are looking for any kind of really well-built, Australian-made and manufactured barbecues, smokers, grills, the Asado grill they've got right now is mint, I just got to say. So do jump over to jagrdwoodfired.com.au. Check that out. It's really cool stuff. The free mini ebook, The Beginner's Guide to Real Barbecue, is still available for you on the Smoking Hot Confessions website. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com, have a bit of a scroll around, a pop-up window will appear, put your details into that, and we'll shoot that little mini ebook straight out to you. And do come join us at the Smoking Hot Confessions barbecue community on Facebook. It's super friendly, super welcoming, and all the BS gets left at the door. We just hang out and talk about barbecue and have a good time. It's really cool. So that is all the time that we do have for today. So until next time, take care of each other and keep on queuing.
Thanks for listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com for recipes, tips, and Ben's own confessions.